Welcome to the Be, Create, Inspire podcast, where we fuse our being into what we're creating so that we inspire ourselves, we inspire others. I'm Arianne, your hostess with the mostest, and today we get to interview a dear mentor of mine, a good friend of mine now, Michelle Villalobos.
Hi, Addie. So good to see you.
You as well. It's been so many years that I've gotten to know you, and I always have to give credit because you were one of my first business mentors. And you taught me so many things. Like, I remember you were like, all right, you should start a funnel. And I was like, what?
That's right. I definitely did do that. I remember.
So why don't tell everybody a little bit about who you are and, what it is that you do. And then we can get into the meaty part of the combo.
Sure. Quickly, my company is called Superstar Activator, and really, truly, that says it all. I love to work with people like you, superstars who have a message, a mission, who want to shine their light in the world. And I help to activate them to do that in a way that's more energy rich, more profitable, more sustainable, more leveraged, more scalable, and ultimately more impactful.
And that's literally what we get to talk about today. And I remember when I always kind of go back to like that origin story. I went to a lunch and learn where you were talking, and I was in this kind of pendulum of like, what do I do right now? Do we keep the studio? Do we, I had no idea where my life was going because I don't think after being a business owner for like 7 years and then having to go get a job, and as you know me, I don't do jobs well. And you kept talking and saying like the potential and your value. And I remember sitting with my friend and being like, dude, like there was like little like fireworks in my mind because at that moment I was in a fairly toxic business relationship and I was getting snuffed. So it was almost like my inner self got reawakened and like reignited, and it was just really powerful. So, for those of you who are listening, if you haven't taken the time to like go and listen to somebody who's just going to give you that spark, it can change the trajectory of your life. So, Michelle, like I always want to say thank you for being that person in my life.
Oh my God, it's an honor. It was a privilege and a pleasure, and I'm so awed, honestly, by what you've built, and it's from that beginning. So, amazing work, and thank you for what you do for the world.
Yay! So let's talk a little bit about that. I know you're like the activator, but this essence of being. I remember being at one of your talks and going to like the 1.0 to the 2.0 and how like we keep ascending, right? That like DNA restructuring. Tell me a little bit about your method and your belief system around this.
Yeah, what I believe is that the first and most fundamental thing we need to do to bring our life up a level or many levels, to create more joy, more fulfillment, more money, all the things, is to come into greater alignment. That's my kind of my word is alignment. And to me, alignment starts with being who you really are. And so that requires taking a look inward and really, even for the first time for some people, like getting to know who you really are and asking yourself, like, who am I really? What do I like? Because so much of what we create up until middle life, not everybody, but I think a lot of us, maybe most of us get to like midlife and then realize, wait, I didn't choose a lot of this. A lot of this was programming, conditioning from childhood. Like I thought I wanted to have fancy cars and fancy houses because then I would be happy because that's what everybody told me. And that's what I saw in the media, or that's what my parents thought, or whatever. Like in my case, and maybe you can relate to this too, parents were immigrants, hardcore, like you
I
gotta
was in.
right, right. And the message is, you got to work hard. It's hard, and the more you work, the better you are, and the better immigrant you are, and the better citizen. that was my, so I worked hard and hit like 35, 39 years old and was like, why am I working so hard? Does it
Yeah.
have to be so hard? So like looking inward and asking, like, are these really my values?
Right.
Who am I really? So that's the inner work and that's the being. And so what I say is when we do that, all of a sudden, or maybe not suddenly, but for me it was pretty sudden, what emerges is like, oh my God, I want a completely different life. Like what I value is very different from what I've been pursuing all my life. Okay,
Yeah.
so now with that clarity, I'm like, well, what do I really want? Okay, that new version of us, I think of it, imagine it as like looks over there and says, oh, I want that. I want that vision for my life. I want to live this way. Like in my case, I was like, I want to be free. I don't want to be tethered to a desk all day, every
Yeah.
day in the same city. I want to go on a road trip for a year. Like, so we have this vision. And then in the process of, and in my case, I had a mentor too. And that mentor, Jake, he's like, all right, how do we make this vision happen? You want to go on this road trip. You want to run your business from the road. You want to be free. How do we do that? So we create a plan and I start executing the plan. And in the process of executing that plan, I become somebody new again.
Right.
I evolve, I grow. And sometimes that means that my vision evolves and grows. And so I see it as like this ever ascending spiral. And it's ascending because we're always going towards greater authenticity, greater alignment with our truest self, with our true values. And those keep sort of showing up and getting clarified and clarified. And in that process, we keep ascending in that upward spiral.
And I mean, it's I'm going to use that word alignment because I've been a yoga teacher for so long that that word is just like in my vernacular, but it's literally how we start also looking back and witnessing, right, that growth. And that moment to me, like, I mean, when you met me, I remember going to the Superstar
Speaker,
Activator event. I went in
Superstar
like,
Academy. Yeah, I remember.
no, the big summit.
Yeah, the Superstar Speaker Academy event.
Yes, yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I went in like yoga pants and like, a tank top with like my Havaianas and feeling so out of sorts because I had no idea, I had lived in this kind of different world for so long and all these ladies are like looking all amazing. I was like, next day I came, like, but it was like my first, now I can look back and be like, wow, right? Like whatever the clothing was, it was just like I was in this different zone where even I didn't even know what my core values were. I was just like throwing things up in the air and everything, was working well. I'll have to say, I was a pretty good yoga entrepreneur, but I was lacking vision. I had non-negotiables. I had no boundaries. So that work was so pivotal, and I'm so glad I learned it because now I get to share it with my clients. So in this curve, right, this like now ascension model that we get to experience, right, that evolution of ourselves, what do you think are like three key elements that people can look into?
Yeah. Okay. Well, by the way, I have a little bit of an echo. I apologize for that.
We don't hear it.
You don't hear it. Okay. I would say the first one, so I have it kind of like a model. You know me, Adi. I love models and pictures and things. So because my brand is Superstar Activator, it's a star. It's a 5-pointed star, like the normal ones you draw. And in the center of the star is what we just discussed, like who am I?
Yeah.
Okay, fundamental. I do personality tests, like all those things. At the top of the star, the point that's facing up is like purpose. You've got to have something greater than you, I think, to be a superstar anyway. Like,
Okay, yeah.
and it's for every human, like something bigger than us. It helps to guide us and orient us towards, a better world, which we all want, right? So that purpose is fundamental. And it doesn't mean like you have to have it all figured out, but just like, hey, I'm serving something greater than myself in the work that I'm doing. Then I, think of the two legs of the stars. You'll love, this first one is right up your alley, especially is your life force energy. you've got to be, you've got to have that life force energy. And to me, like, I used to be super unhealthy. You met me right at the verge, like right when I was transitioning from this lifestyle of drinking,
Mm-hmm.
partying, eating excessively, like not working out. I discovered yoga around the time I met you.
Mm-hmm.
Funny,
Yeah.
right? So that, there's a real big factor. And I know that me 15 years ago didn't want to hear this message. That's like how you take care of your body.
Yeah.
That's important. It matters. It brings energy, it creates life force, and it helps you, vibe at a higher frequency. The other leg is grounding into your values, which you mentioned, like
Yeah.
what matters to you. Freedom. I know freedom's a big value for you.
Big.
It's maybe the biggest for me. I have a high value for freedom. That's why we're entrepreneurs, right?
Right.
Nobody, I don't want anybody telling me what to do. Um, and so, values, family. I just moved back to Fort Lauderdale so I could be closer to my family because I recognized that was a high value for me and I
Yeah.
wasn't honoring that. So, that. And then the two arms is like number one, and you and I've both done a lot of this work, like the arm that reaches into the past, that's, healing the wounds,
Yeah.
because those wounds keep coming back and triggering us in the present moment, and that impacts our future.
Mm-hmm.
So the work has to be to recognize, hey, here are my triggers, here are my wounds, and going in and healing those and
Yeah.
coming into neutrality with our own past and our own story, and even into gratitude.
Yeah.
And then the other arm reaches into the future, and it is, where are you going? What's a compelling vision? I
Yeah.
think every one of us, if we know we're going somewhere compelling, we have more energy, more life force, we're more activated. So those are the elements in my world that we begin with. It's the
Mm,
self leadership
yeah.
journey.
And that word leadership is, um, I think, what ignites, like the moment that you identify yourself as not only leading yourself, but then the potential to lead others. That's like, to me, the I don't know, the spark to the dynamite, and because it's such a. I remember doing this exercise with, in one of our retreats, and it was like, what are the qualities of a leader? And everybody just sharing, like, flexibility, being able to listen, um, you know, creating the ideas, supporting your. And it's true. It's like we have to embody so many different aspects of ourselves in order to lead. But if you can't lead yourself to make the right decisions, I woke up at 5:30 to be at the 6 a.m., kick my ass class, because I want to be strong for the rest of my day and eat correctly, get, my proteins, so I can be here and do the podcast, coach some clients, create, I have to film videos today for my new funnels. So if I was tired and not inspired, how can I then do anything from there? Right?
Well, and if you did do things from there, they certainly wouldn't land the same. The
No.
energy, the
Yeah.
energy precedes outcomes, I
Yeah.
always say.
Yeah.
The you showing up tired, uninspired creates a completely different kind of video and a completely different signal
Yeah.
in the world than you empowered, excited, on purpose.
Exactly. I remember a friend of mine said this. He was like, when you have any, like, negativity or bad energy, or you're like, even if you film an ad and you're like, oh my God, I have to film this ad, that's the result you're going to get.
In there.
The ad could be great, but I don't think it's going to convert, like, because you started, like, oh, right, with that kind of a poopy energy.
I agree 100%.
um, so the star model, right now, how, let's translate into that aspect of now, like, creation, because creating anything, as you know, takes a ton of energy. It takes a lot of time, iteration, testing. Can you tell us a little bit, because you're like the queen of business models, can you tell us a little bit about, like, what are the superstar business models that, some of our listeners could consider, applying into their business?
Yeah, for sure. So the model that I ultimately found or discovered and then ultimately like tweaked and aligned for me is what I'm calling now. I might change the name sometime, but like I'm calling it a community coaching model.
Love it.
The idea is that it, it initially, it's also AKA the big back end,
Yeah.
right? You've heard me talk about that. The idea being that, and I think going a little bit into my story will help here because it might resonate with you. And I know it'll resonate with you and others. Like I spent so many years in a business model where I was constantly having to work and struggle to make money,
Yeah.
right? Like, and it was because it was a time for money model. In order to make more money, had to spend more time, and I had to constantly be marketing because it was gig focused.
Yeah.
So, I would sell 6 sessions, I would sell a half day, I would sell a full day, I'd sell a workshop, a speaking engagement, but it was all short-term stuff. The breakdown I had in 2014, like right before I met you, was what kind of catalyzed me to say, I can't live like this anymore. I can't work
Mhm.
anymore. I need stability. I need consistency. And so when I saw somebody doing a model that was a monthly recurring revenue, year-long program, and I signed up for it,
Yeah.
2 weeks program, I was like, I need to learn how to do this. And that's when I shifted my model to the one I still have 10 years later to this
Mhm.
day. And so that is basically, I think of it in 3 parts: front end, breakthrough, big back end. The front end is all the marketing, the funnels, the speaking, the blogging, the social, all the ways that people initially connect with you and get an aha moment, at least.
Yeah.
From there, and this is where you come in, especially, it's like moving people from there into some sort of paid breakout
Right.
breakthrough. In my case, in my world, the breakthrough is a 3-day retreat because I love that model.
Yeah.
Not everybody likes that model. Not everybody wants to do that model, but everybody can create some sort of breakthrough. It can be a 6-week course. It could be a 1 day, a half day, all sorts of ways but the idea is that you give somebody something that's juicy enough and valuable enough and that generates enough of an outcome that, number one, they love you, they trust you, they're happy with their investment. And number two, they might want to keep going.
Yeah.
And that's where the big back end comes in, which I have made, a community coaching model, which is a group model. It's a mastermind slash group coaching program. That can take on a lot of different forms too. And
Yeah.
that's what I participated in for, I think, 3 years with
Yeah.
me, was the
Pretty much.
influence circle. And that's still in place today. And so it's a front end, free, low price point, low commitment, aha moment into a breakthrough 3-day, more intense, higher monetary financial commitment into a 1 year, and then 2-year renewals after that. And that's the model that I love, that's really given me so much freedom and so
Yeah.
much peace, and required me to step into much greater leadership every single day, even this morning.
And I mean, all your programs are fairly high ticket. They're expensive. I always tell people the story. I'm like, I used my wedding money to join Michelle's first program, but it changed my life, right? Like, what's the price?
Yeah.
What's the price for that? Like, I went from making, I don't know, 40, $50,000 a year to 6 figures, like fairly quickly. It took a lot of work, but I did it, and
In a
I've
way that was
continued.
aligned, and it was
Yeah,
in a way that was aligned with your true self. Like it put you on a trajectory of growth
exactly,
too.
exactly.
Mhm.
But so in this model that you do, can you give us an insight of like what are some of those like how do you get people into your retreat, into your 3-day retreat that then creates that like stepping stone for the year-long mastermind and
Sure.
big back end?
Yeah, so I've been running these, like tracking these numbers now for a bit, and it turns out very simple: 3 primary ways that we are attracting people into the retreat. One is referrals from
Mm-hmm.
existing clients and people who come into the retreats, and I do a very uh, intentional process inside each retreat to
Mm-hmm.
generate referrals.
Got it.
Um, YouTube is
Interesting.
a primary strategy. About a third of our leads come from YouTube. So YouTube, I
Huh.
do long form how-to videos
Yeah.
that I I find questions through keyword research and I
Yeah.
answer those questions on YouTube. I've
Amazing.
been doing that for 4 years or five, and it took about a year before we got even our first sale from YouTube.
Okay. Okay. Wait, I want you guys to listen to that, right? Because sometimes we like put up a couple videos online, you're like, oh, I didn't do anything. And then you stop. A year,
Year,
a
over a year.
year, over a year to get one paid lead. But that one paid lead probably paid for the year's long worth of work.
It did.
It did.
Programs are not cheap, and
Right.
because that person came in at $3,000 and ended up investing 30 on top of
Perfect.
that. So,
But perfect. That's, I mean, this is why I love to tell people like, don't be afraid of building a expensive experience for people. You have to deliver the value. If not, you're a charlatan. But Michelle does, and she's figured out that system. So it's like a year before the first paid lead. And some of us give up after like our fifth reel on Instagram that we didn't get, 1,000 views on.
right.
So just
Exactly.
I had to, yeah.
And honestly, to be totally transparent, like I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have kept going had I not made the investment and the commitment for a year
Yeah.
to do those videos.
Yeah, for sure.
So I locked myself into that commitment because I know how I am, which is, oh, I don't want to do these videos anymore. So self-awareness is very helpful.
Yes.
So that's the second one,
Okay.
YouTube. And so YouTube, we answer those questions, and then I just get them into my funnel. I get
Yeah.
them onto an email list. That's the primary strategy, and then shoot them valuable emails
Yeah.
every week or so.
Yeah. So, if you guys want to imagine this, right? We have our triangle, downward pointing triangle, and above, and you also do speaking. So above this triangle is this, right? Yeah.
That's the third one.
The
Speaking.
top of funnel is YouTube, speaking, and referrals. That's what's working for her. Obviously, you do Instagram and you do, podcast interviews, all this fun stuff. But like through data, you've been able to analyze and say, okay, these are the three ones. Like, let's rock these to our best of our ability because we're going to get the results that we want. So it's good to have, again, looking back and say, look at this data. Like we've tried 12 things. 3 out of the 12 are the ones that are working. So you double down on those.
Exactly.
Like
Exactly. And
add,
actually,
yeah,
this retreat, I have new information now. We haven't run all the numbers yet, but I'm looking at it, and I can tell you two of those people that are registered for this next one came from a different new thing that we're doing. Not new thing, but like from me networking, from me
yeah,
being out in the world and just meeting people and
yeah.
shaking hands and kissing
And
babies.
oh my God, I use that same phrase. Well, my last two clients have come from networking as well. And they were one-on-one, at like my one-on-one price point. So I've been bringing this back into the conversation that doing things live in person and talking to people and exchanging information and icon, like there's a huge surge in like in-person events again. We're actually leading a retreat in California in January all about leading conscious and mindful events to grow your business. So okay, I love that. So then this is for you guys to understand, right? Like we have methods of like filling our funnel, and then you start doing your magic. They sign up for the 3-day retreat, which I believe you do through phone calls, discovery calls,
Always still,
always still, right? And
myself.
yeah, and that's what, a $2,000-$3,000 price point, right?
Three. Mm-hmm.
Three. So
Yep.
you could probably sell it with like info sessions as well, but like, webinars, that kind of stuff to prime people and then get people into
Oh,
phone calls.
I am sorry. So there are two new ways I'm selling it. I just sold one yesterday in
Oh,
a
good.
group strategy session. Ari, I'm doing group discovery calls. So people come through the funnel and they get filtered
Yeah.
for question and answer. And so there's certain questions that will qualify people immediately to hop on my calendar.
Yep.
And then there are certain people that are less qualified, but still
Yeah.
possibly qualified. And when I say qualified, I mean they're committed,
Yeah.
they're excited, they're ready, they have the right kind of business. And yes, they have some money to invest or they know how to get it, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And so those people, we've been inviting them once a month to a group call, which in
Mm,
the beginning wasn't so good. And I was like, oh, I don't know. But I just did my sixth or seventh one. And again, here's an example of like sticking with the strategy. I had a great call yesterday, and one of the people bought right on the spot.
that's amazing.
And webinars too. We do
Yeah.
once a quarter, right? Like about 2 months out from my 3-day retreat, I do a webinar. And
Yeah.
I pretty much only promote it to my email list and I
Yeah.
fill it. And then I usually make 2 or 3 sales of that. And that might not sound like a lot, but with this model, I only need
Yeah.
like 10, I only want 10 or so
Yeah.
prospects retreat because the ticket price is high and the back end program. I'm not looking to do hundreds
Yeah.
or even dozens of people. I don't need that to
Yeah.
keep the model humming.
It's like I love to say this. It's like you need a handful of people to make
Yeah.
thousands of dollars
Yeah.
in this type of model, right? Like now, if you guys listening, you're like, well, I don't know how to sell something that's $3,000. I don't know how, and you're more comfortable at like a 2 to 300. But that might actually be still in alignment to your monthly revenue goals. Like maybe you're like, I need to make 5,000, so you can still just do the math, right? To match the vision. I know Michelle, you have a higher, like, you like to live with nice things, and that's perfect. So it's so beautiful to see how we're breaking this down, because the more that you guys can almost see this at a higher end, you can still like basically redo it, but at what makes you feel comfortable. And I'm
Yeah.
sure like in the beginning you weren't like, oh, 10,000, $30,000. Like I know I didn't pay that for our
No.
mastermind.
Right.
So you've progressively increased your
Yeah.
charges. And who
And
did you
what
have to
has
become?
happened? Sorry?
Who did you have to become to be like $35,000?
Yeah, 40 now. I mean, it's got a bargain, sister. Um, the thing was what shifted for me and what made it because I'd never well, my first offer to you, if you don't mind my
No,
saying
no,
it,
no, please.
was 10,000 if you recall. That's what you first invested and that was a huge amount of money for you. It was a huge amount of money for me. No, the first time you did the full day.
Oh, yes, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that's
yeah,
where you started. And the reason I was able to charge that the first time was because that's what something I paid.
yeah.
Once I invested it,
Mm,
then I found I could charge it. And I don't know if that's true for everybody, but it seems to be kind of a rule of thumb that
interesting.
once you invested it, you're more able to stand in it, like you've
Yeah,
embodied it. Like I've invested this, so you can invest this for me now.
yeah,
So that's what happened with me when I paid him, and it's not exact because I paid him 25,000 and then I was only charging 18 for Inner Circle when I launched it. But, because it was a drop, but it felt like, but that was still a huge step up for me.
yeah.
That's part of it. And by the way, Ari, I'm happy to share if you want. I have a spreadsheet for people to run their own projections.
Oh, yeah, please. We always love gifts from our
Okay.
speakers. Yeah. Um, I love that. So, okay, so then boom, 3-day retreat, mastermind, and then you have the continuity model. And I know some people have been in your continuity model for years. Like talk about lifetime customer value.
10 years
10 years.
and 6 years and 5 years now. There was a gap from 10 to 7 where I was figuring out how to be a great leader or a
Yeah.
better leader or, good leader. And I really started to nail that about 5 or 6 years ago, I would say. And my retention went way up from there.
That's amazing. I mean, and now you're doing um these shows like mini TEDx's, which are so fun. You get to feature your clients and their magic. It's so awesome. I love watching everything you do. So you still have a fan from behind the emails and all the things. So what would you say is for somebody who maybe is in this burgeoning state of like, I want to launch a service-based coaching transformational type of business, what would you say is like your biggest piece of advice?
Wow. I mean, I think it's so important to believe in what you offer, right? Like that's that where I see things break down a lot is where people are creating something but they don't believe in it yet, or they, and so I think it's really important to, if you're launching, truly launching from the beginning, like to start with something that you can really stand in and say, I know how to do this. I know I can deliver this. And even if that means starting one-on-one, if that means, starting with three people that even if it means like, let me do this with you to get a case study.
Yeah.
Right? But I think it's so important to be able to point to a track record. One of the biggest issues I see in the coaching business is people are pretending,
Mm,
or fake it till you make it.
yeah.
I feel like that's such an unhealthy vibe. And so, for example, when I started this, I had such a challenge because I was like, well, how can I coach people if I'm struggling?
Yeah.
No coaches have that issue. So for me, I was like, okay, well, I know I can coach people in personal branding
Yeah.
because I've done that. Look at my brand is everywhere, my
Yep.
pictures, like I knew I could do that. So then that's where I began. And then as I started making money and having, success in that way, then I started talking more about, oh, and I can help you make money and I can help you do your model. So I just think it's so important that people embody the change that they're offering, so that
Mm,
you're not like pretending that you can do something that you really haven't done for yourself. I think
yeah.
coaching is a business of embodiment, and that will attract clients so much more easily
Yeah.
than when you're, kind of, there's so much like marketing speak. And this because you're in the marketing
Yeah.
space. You see people and you can feel it when you read something and you're like, ew, that's not right. It's
Yeah.
got to be authentic. And in order to be authentic, you have to be doing the work, just like you're doing. Like you're building funnels. You're showing us what you're doing
Yeah.
transparently because you're practicing what you preach. And that's so important in this space.
Yeah. And this morning I read something from another wonderful marketer, and she's like, now people have to almost like they feel the need, right? They don't have to, they feel the need to like over over promise, right?
Yeah.
And say, oh, look how this one thing, and it's so easy to implement, and she was like, bullshit. Like nothing's easy at first, and sometimes you have to learn things and fall on your face a bunch of times. And I remember, the first time I did my webinar, I was like, what? Who, like, I'm talking to no one. It felt so odd. Like, luckily, I got a couple clients out of it, my first two clients. But like the amount of work that I had to do for that first webinar, learn how to build a funnel, learn the software, understand the concept of sales, of selling to people that you couldn't see, and actually selling out loud and being like, you're going to get this and you're going to get that. Like I felt like a car salesman, you know?
Oh, and the value of this is this, and
Yeah.
if you now you're going to get this fast action bonus, and
And I was like, ugh, like, kind of like threw up in my mouth a little bit. And then I was like, wait, I just made $700. Okay, let's do it again.
right,
And even if at the time, like there's been webinars or things that I've done that I've paid $0,
me too. Oh, yes, yes,
but I learned what happened. I learned, oh, we started promoting too late, or like I got kind of like lazy at the sales part, or, I didn't talk about myself at all. And maybe people didn't have that. Like you start figuring out what were those little, and then you do it again, and then you do it
levers.
again, and then you do it again. So this is a testament, Michelle, you've been in business doing this for what, over 10 years?
17 years.
17 years. Okay. Almost 20 years. That sounds more powerful.
17 years, and 10 years doing it this way with
This
this
way. Okay.
plan. Yeah.
And it like again, I just have to say thank you for kind of being that spark in my life that has allowed me to I allowed myself, but you saw the greatness in me.
Right? Like I'm a catalyst.
Yeah,
That's exactly who I
exactly.
want to be. So I love hearing that.
Yeah. So if you guys want to learn more about Michelle, please, we'll have all her links in the show notes. Get that projection calculator. I want it as well, so I'll grab it. I always love my tools, and I can't wait to see you in person. We'll have a juice date or something so soon.
So
Love you.
good. Sounds lovely.
All right, everybody, please share this episode, like, subscribe, do all the things, and I can't wait to see you again for Be Create Inspire.